Hello and thanks for joining us on today's special film show live from Deauville. The Festival of American Cinema is back in the French resort town with Diane Kruger, James Franco and Stanley Tucci gracing the red carpet. Now, in its 42nd year, the selection takes in documentaries, action movies, historical dramas and plenty of up-and-coming talent. Our film critic Lisa Nesselson's joining us live from the festival. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Well, as always, there's a stellar lineup this year at Deauville. The festival's honouring director Michael Moore. He was an eagerly awaited guest, but unfortunately had to cancel his visit. So, Lisa, who else has made the trip?
Well, it's almost as if Michael Moore is here. He's one of the best social agitators and creative filmmakers America has at the moment, and all of his films are being shown on the big screen, which is an extraordinary opportunity. But tributes have been paid to Stanley Tucci, who has made over 50 motion pictures as an actor. He's also worked extensively as a director. James Franco came here straight from the Venice Film Festival en route to Toronto with his latest directorial effort, and he's got so many hats on at any given time that you don't really know what to call him. Poet, artist, writer, director, producer, actor, you name it, he does it if it's creative. And of course, Daniel Radcliffe, who is now 27 years old, but will forever be the character of Harry Potter, and the crowds will be very happy to see that.
Well, let's start with one of the films showing at the festival, The Infiltrator. It tells the true life story of a US customs agent who goes undercover into the dark world of famed drug lord Pablo Escobar. The Colombian drug trafficker is also the subject of a popular series at the moment. He's the centre of a lot of fictional drama. Lisa, what did you think of the film?
I had a very comfortable seat that I could have been sitting back in, but in fact, I was on the edge of it for most of this film, even though the story turned out rather well in the end. But while you're watching it, you have no idea which way it's going to go. Extremely brave U.S. customs agents put their lives on the line all the time. This was in the mid-1980s, and a very gifted undercover customs agent named Robert Mazur posed as a businessman with legitimate businesses so that he could get close to the source of the money which was being made hand over fist by the Medellin cocaine cartel and the famous Pablo Escobar. And so he is played by Bryan Cranston in the film, and his fiancée is played by Diane Kruger, and the two of them become very, very close to upper echelon people, the better to bring down about 85 individuals, and also at the time the 7th biggest private investment bank that was laundering the money. Extraordinary work. You don't get any extra pay for it. I was fortunate enough to interview both Diane Kruger and the real Robert Mazur. You'll see he had a scary bodyguard, and we're only allowed to film him from the back of his head. I asked Diane Kruger, since she has played real characters such as Helen of Troy and Marie Antoinette, if it's more difficult to play a contemporary real person because there's witnesses walking around that can judge your performance. And I asked Mr. Mazur, who now works as a consultant to television and movies, what are some of the silliest things he's seen on screen from people who did not consult with him. Let's watch.
Contrary to historical figures, everybody has an opinion of what Helen of Troy should have looked like, or how Marie Antoinette was and how horrible or great she was. So I actually found when I was trying to do those characters that I was much more judged than playing someone who really existed, because I could really pick her brain.
It's Escobar.
No, wait a second. Bob, are you in danger from Pablo Escobar if his money doesn't come through?
When I see officers come onto crime scenes where they start touching bodies and moving evidence and not treating it like a real crime scene, my wife is so uninterested in attending a law enforcement related movie with me, because all she does is get whispers in the ear of, you know what, that could never happen.
Well, Lisa, I don't believe you were in Miami in the 1980s, but do you think this adaptation is true to life?
Right down to the shoulder pads and the hairdos. It's extraordinarily accurate, especially because the major people involved were able to consult on it, and it is based greatly on the memoir by the real Robert Mazur, which started the ball rolling. I really recommend this film.
Well, you also caught a very different movie from director Todd Solondz. It's called Wiener Dog, and it does indeed feature a little sausage dog. Tell us more.
Well, he's the sort of narrative glue between four distinct stories about contemporary America. Todd Solondz has a very sardonic sense of humor. He's very, very good at satiring everything from gender identity to what goes on in families. And this has got four characters: a young boy who at first has the dachshund. He's a cancer survivor, and his relationship to his parents is a little dodgy. Then they take him to a vet where Greta Gerwig plays the veterinary assistant who decides to abscond with the dog and rescue him. Something I absolutely love about this film is that it actually has an old-fashioned intermission, like go out to the lobby, get popcorn, get soft drinks, come back and see the adventures of the dog. Then Danny DeVito, in one of his finest performances, I think, in a long career, as a very disgruntled film professor who is trying to get his directing career back on track. And finally, as we'll see in this upcoming clip, Ellen Burstyn as an old, semi-bitter woman who receives a visit from her granddaughter who's angling for, well, some cash. Let's take a look.
Fantasy is an artist.
Like Picasso.
Yeah, he was just in this group show, and it got mentioned in Art Forum 30 Under 30. And he was a finalist for Guggenheim last year.
I got robbed.
You know, Nana used to do some painting when she was young, didn't you, Nana?
I posed nude and spread my legs.
That's cool.
Well, that looks like exactly the kind of quirky material Todd Solondz fans will love. The next film we're looking at stars James Franco, one of the festival's special guests this year. It's a period piece called In Dubious Battle, and it was also shown at Venice. Franco directed it himself, I believe.
He did indeed, and he also gave himself a pretty juicy role. This is the little-known first novel in the unofficial Dust Bowl trilogy by the Pulitzer Prize-winning author, not director, not actor, author, John Steinbeck, which was followed by Of Mice and Men, and of course, The Grapes of Wrath, which a friend of mine who worked in a bookstore in Chicago had a Japanese customer come in and asked if they had a book called The Angry Raisins. Here it's not The Angry Raisins, it's The Angry Apples, because it's about labor organizers trying to get itinerant apple pickers organized in the 1930s, in the heart of the Depression. They've spent all their money to get out to where the work is. They were promised $3 a day for backbreaking labor. And when they get there, the boss man says, "I'm sorry, I can only pay you $1. So even then, especially then, we had the 1%, or the people in charge who already had the property and the power, telling the lower classes what to do. So it's rather pertinent. In this scene, we see some of the characters from the film and the importance of organizing in the history of the American labor movement.
It's just a simple, clean life.
Any resistance will be met with swift and permanent force.
If that's the cost of all of this, it ain't right.
If we fight this out, the whole country will know about it. It's worth it.
Now who's with me? Time for waiting is done!
Well, there's certainly some very contemporary themes there, Lisa, but how do you think James Franco dealt with the material? He wears many caps. What about directing? Did he do well?
He's very sincere. He's very earnest. If you're down to your last dollar, euro, shekel, I wouldn't suggest that you invested in this movie. If you're filthy rich, maybe you should check it out. Just an interesting Deauville-centric true story. 15 years ago, James Franco came here for the first time. In one of his very first roles, he played James Dean, and he played him rather well. And as I was filing out of the auditorium, an American woman behind me said, "The kid is pretty good, but what a dumb move. Now he'll be typecast. Nobody's ever going to want to cast him again." Well, he gets cast an awful lot. You may have seen him in a little ditty called Spider-Man. And he's a very talented fellow. And, you know, I don't like this movie that much, but he's getting better every time behind the camera.
Well, luckily, he seems not to be just a pretty face. Well, we're finishing off with a bit of music via what looks to be a very heartwarming offering from director John Carney. It's called Singh Street, and I have a feeling you liked it, Lisa.
You know, I would be an absolute terminal curmudgeon if I didn't like it. This is a movie that shouldn't work because the story is kind of tried and true. It's about teenagers trying to find their place in the world. And yet, John Carney's hand at doing this kind of story is absolutely fabulous. It's set in mid-1980s Dublin. The young people don't have cell phones. In fact, there's one guy who says, "Oh, we don't even have a telephone. Just stop by if you want to see me." And it's about something that most of us now take for granted, which is the music video, which was just starting then. So we have the buoyant pop sounds of the mid-1980s, and our main character, played by an extraordinarily talented young man named Frudia Walsh-Pilo. He plays Connor, who's trying to find his place. He gets sent to a rather abrupt, unpleasant public school where he's bullied, and yet he has musical talent to burn, forms a band so that he can come onto a girl, and all of the themes of being on your way to young adulthood are incorporated into a musical pleasure for the eyes and ears.
Very sweet walk down memory lane there. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us for this show. We'll leave you with that musical opus from Singh Street. Remember to check out our website. You can follow Encore on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Face of an angel.